As an educated meathead, I want to be doing everything I can to recover from each training session. Rapid reboot compression therapy is one of the tools in my tool belt that I not only use in just my office, but myself after every single leg session, and it really makes a difference. Use my promo code Dr. Marvin Says to save money on any of the compression systems. That is definitely Dr. Marv approved.
You're Between Two Dumbbells. I'm your host, Skip Hill, and I'm bringing over 40 years of bodybuilding experience to the table, including over 24 years of online coaching. I'm joined today, as usual, by my co-host, Dr. Marv, aka The Educated Meathead. For each show, we posit a thought about a training exercise or training methodology, and then we deep dive into the minutia. Typically, we're on the same page, but there are those days when we call each other names and tell each other how stupid the other one is. Remember, we started the critical physique assessment segment last week. So if you're interested in being assessed on a future show, be sure to reach out to me via email at teamskip1@gmail.com, and I'll send you a list of the information that you'll need to submit, including pictures. Use the TrueNutrition.com link in the closing credits to save 10% on not just Team Skip protein, but every supplement they sell. Not only do I use my Team Skip protein with my clients, but other top prep guys have their clients use my protein because it's that good. I know a thing or two about training, but I built a reputation in the bodybuilding industry for removing skin. If you have too much skin, call me. Remember, skin is overrated. Critical physique assessment. Who do we have up? I think the name is Anthony Patero. Does that sound, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah.
I'm usually pretty good. I know. He'll correct me if I'm wrong, right?
Yeah.
I believe it's Anthony Patero. So Anthony, you're on the hot seat, which is, it's not a hot seat, right? It's, we're going to break down your physique. We're going to break down training programming, the details, what Dr. Marv thinks you should do. And then I'm going to come in and go, oh, that is so stupid. I would not do that. Does this guy even program? Like, bro. Pictures up on the screen. I'm gonna hand it off to you first. Tell me what you think, and I'll tell you what I think. And where do you see? Do you see weaknesses? What are you thinking? What's your brain saying?
So, I mean, depending on what his ultimate goal is,
Right.
It doesn't seem like he's a competitive bodybuilder based on the questions he answered, but he loves living the lifestyle, likes being jacked and strong. He's got significant injury history. So like some of the questions I have is like, you know, he listed he has tennis elbow. Do you have it currently, or is that a past injury? Like, so he's got a couple injuries that we got to keep in mind.
Yeah.
But the main thing is when folks come to me when they're like this, I don't think you should focus on one body part per se and just go, look, we just got to get you bigger everywhere, which is not bad, but you need to earn the right to get the sniper rifle or the scalpel out, like we've talked about multiple times. And right now he needs the shotgun, he needs the shovel. He's just got to get everything bigger, period, before worrying about, you know, bringing this up or that up, which is where most people are, because what does everybody talk about? You know, like what do we talk about? Specific movements for specific body parts. So people go, oh, well, you know, I'm following this person and this person's doing, you know, a chest specialization phase. I should do that. You just need everything bigger, full stop. So I would say, let's just get you to grow overall, because he's been lifting for some time, right? Wasn't it 13,
15 years, I believe.
Yeah. So like, he's not new to lifting. So let's figure out what we need to do to get you growing.
And did he say how long? Because he's lost 100 pounds, right?
Yeah, so that's huge. So
and
I don't
was
know
that
if you want to talk about a couple of his things that he emailed you first, because that's awesome.
Yeah,
he doesn't have a ton of loose skin either.
Right, exactly. Just some bullet points. Basically, he's lost 100 pounds or over 100 pounds, was over 300 pounds. And he mentions the car accident and, you know, quite a few things that are limiting with his training, from a knee to other issues. So there are some limitations there for exercises I'm sure that he can do.
Yep.
What I wonder is, I'm going to assume that he had the accident, was probably, you know, obviously pretty immobile for quite a bit of time, and that either created the situation where he was overweight or it exacerbated it, one or the other. But I don't know the time frame. He didn't give the timeline of the accident, so I'm not sure how much time has evolved since the accident, since he's lost all the weight. But the point is he's down about 100 pounds. He can get leaner. But losing 100 pounds, I'm not going to beat somebody up.
That's
well, you
awesome.
should be a little leaner if they've lost 100 pounds. Which brings me to this point. I'm going to say it as briefly and quickly as possible. When you see someone on stage at a bodybuilding contest, whether it's physique or whether it's bikini or no matter what, and they're not in great condition, don't sit there and either think, oh, this guy doesn't belong here. Because I will tell you, competitors don't do that. Very few competitors do that. I'll rephrase it. It's typically the guy who hasn't been on stage. And the reason I say not to point a finger at them or potentially mock them or whatever your thoughts are, you don't know their story. They could have lost, and sometimes they do. They've lost a lot of weight. Yeah, they might not be, you know, battling for that top spot, but they're there. They gave themselves the deadline. It was a goal. Let's not do that. Everybody has a story, so go easy.
Completely agree. I mean, yeah, I got up on my soapbox an episode or two ago because of all the people talking trash to me. I'm like, you don't know what was going on in my life of why I'm down 60 pounds. Like, you don't know. That's why if you assume, we know what happens when you assume stuff, right? So knock it off, folks. So yeah, so mad respect. To my understanding is he had the car wreck, he was immobilized, and when he was immobilized, it started his weight loss journey of 100 pounds, and then he kept it going.
Okay.
Is what my understanding is. Regardless, that's just semantics, but that's his backstory, and it seems like he's a garage gym trainer.
I thought the same thing,
right?
Yeah.
So I kept that in mind when programming, trying to keep it as simple as possible because he specifically mentioned dumbbells and barbells, and he's got a bench in the back you could see. So that's what I went with.
That was the giveaway for me. I'm like, well, I'm gonna assume that if he has a bench at home and there are weights on it, he's probably training at home.
So what are your thoughts of what I said about just everything needs to just
so far 100%? And I always say, unfortunately, we're on the same page because I don't like to be on the same page. We want to give different, different viewpoints and different perspectives, but so far we are on the same page. I think that it would be premature for him or someone else in his position with that level of development to be able to say, and I'm sure he has it in his mind. He's like, I want my biceps bigger. I get it. I was there. We were all there. I remember being 15 years old going, my biceps aren't that big. And then I had to go, nothing's all that big. So we have those things that we do want to get bigger and we focus on, or we want to focus on, when in reality, the best option is typically just to focus on everything. Then as the development for everything gets bigger, then it becomes or can become a bit more obvious what the weaknesses are. But sometimes you get bigger all over and there aren't weaknesses, or what you perceive as weaknesses become maybe not necessarily your strong points, but they become far less weak and they don't stand out as much. Biceps, good example. Let's just say you're training back heavy and you're training back hard and you're getting a lot of indirect bicep workout and your biceps are growing. That can happen. So far we're on the same, I think we're on the same page. I would rather go at it and plan to go at my opinions on what he should do as let's put on size. Maybe arguably continue down the path of getting leaner at the same time, kind of a recomp, but yeah, we're on the same page.
Yeah. And then it sounds like he follows RP, Renaissance periodization, right? So he mentioned that specifically. So
I don't know what those tweaks are because he did mention some tweaks in there, but the basic concept is the Renaissance. So for those who don't know, that's RIR. And I even had to ask you just to be sure, because I'm not crystal clear on a lot of these methodologies, a lot of these training programs. It's essentially an RIR program, correct? With an increase in volume over time, you said?
Yeah, so I think so. It's from Dr. Mike Israetel and those guys, Jared Feather, Renaissance Periodization. I haven't done a program, but my understanding talking with people is it starts at a higher RIR and then you slowly lower, start at 3 to 4 reps in reserve, then start slowly whittling away. Sometimes you increase sets while you're decreasing RIR, but they are really good. What RP did great is they brought periodization to bodybuilding because bodybuilders missed that day in class where you have to structure your training. You can't just hit the gas pedal. Like strongmen do it, powerlifters do it. Bodybuilders were notorious for not even, what is a mesocycle? Like you ask a bodybuilder what that is, they don't know what they are doing until RP came along. They're also brilliant marketers and came up with their whole minimum effective volume, maximum adaptive volume, maximal recoverable volume. Brilliant marketers.
You have to wonder if they purposely did that, because in our world, when you have something that's niche, it sets you apart from everybody else. Skip loading did the same thing for me years ago. I didn't plan on that, but in retrospect, I was lucky for that because it set me apart from what everybody else was doing. So I do secretly wonder if it's something they came up with, because a lot of what we do, or a lot of this industry, is like cycling and recycling.
Yep.
So you had the volume of the 70s, then we went into, the 80s. I always call the Lee Haney days. It was, 6 to 8 reps. So it was low reps, but it was still considered, obviously hypertrophy. Then we got into the 90s and it was low volume, things like that. We started to get into DC training, which is kind of still a low volume in the 2000s or early 2000s. But the high intensity, version with DC training, things like that. So I think we're kind of coming around. I see it coming around to a little bit more volume. Then we get into what I do with progressive volume. So they're setting themselves apart. And I like the fact that it's, even though I'm not sure I'm 100% in love with the idea of RIR, every day that goes by, I think to myself, this next generation is not as stupid or lazy as we make them out to be, because they don't seem to have a problem with recovery. Where the old heads go in and we just can't stand not driving ourselves into the ground. Everything has to be Branch Warren-esque. It has to be so high intensity. Try to get an old head to pull back and deload, or take a deload week. It's impossible. I don't want to say it's impossible, but it's very difficult. So,
and then who's succeeding the most with RP is folks who come from heavy duty failure training. So like Nick Walker comes to mind, Paul Barnett comes to mind. I don't know if Dr. Dean St. Mart's doing RP specifically, but I know he's transitioned to reps in reserve. But what's the common theme? They all spent significant periods of time going balls to the wall, true failure, overstepping. So I have strong opinions of, until you've done failure training for at least a year, I don't think you should consider RIR, unless if you're trying to be as muscular as possible, right? If you're just average person who wants to look a little bit better naked, don't worry about it. But if you're listening to the podcast, trying to put on as much muscle as humanly possible, you don't know where your reps in reserve are until you've been training consistently. And I say the year mark on purpose. I was going to say 6 months, but I've changed that to a year, because your definition of intensity gets better and better and better and better, right? What you thought was intense a year ago, looking at it, you're like, that's laughable. So like, I think you need to spend significant amount of time learning that, and then you can pull back. Because if you watch a Nick or a Paul or these other, folks who've transitioned to RP, you look at their top sets, that's defined as failure for 99.9% of people, right? But to us, or to them, it's still 1 rep in reserve, because we have the ability to kick it in higher gear. So that's my personal stance on this.
Performance chiropractic and sports medicine in the Houston Bay Area, telemedicine and nutrition coaching all over Texas. And if you're not in Texas, don't worry. You still do consults through the educatedmeathead.com, where you also find workout programs, seminar recordings, and online courses.
And I've got a question for you, because I think we have talked about this more than a few times off the podcast. My brain wants to come around, and is beginning to come around to the RIR concept.
There we go.
Because and I don't want to use Nick as an example, Nick Walker, because he's an outlier. I mean, let's be fair. The guy is just, to say he's massive is a gross understatement. But I think what happens is the intensity. You touched on this a couple minutes ago. The intensity, you don't know what that intensity is, or intensity continues to build. Like if you look back 5 years on your training, you're like, gosh, I thought I was intense. I'm going to go so far as to say that I think there's a connection between the amount of muscle that you have and the ability to generate the intensity. Because I know when I first started, I could go to failure, and I could go to failure for 10 sets of bench and not know. Maybe I just didn't know the difference. And I was, but I would progress because it was a new stimulus. And for whatever reason, when I was a teenager and not on gear, I was recovering. I could have recovered better had I not gone to failure with all those sets, I'm sure. But the point is I was still able to recover until there became a point where I wasn't, and I had to back off. So the amount of intensity that I know I can generate now without going to failure, I can relate to the Nick Walkers. I don't have that kind of size. So anyone who's listening or viewing, that is not what I'm implying. But what I am saying is, as you build more muscle tissue, I think you can generate much more intensity without going to failure. So then the question becomes, how much is too much, or how much is necessary? Because it's not about the amount of work we can do. It's about the amount of work we can do and recover from. We can always do more. Oh, I could do another set. But is that set going to be beneficial? I could do another exercise. But is that exercise going to be beneficial? Well, I got a little bit better pump. Does that matter in the end? There's a lot of questions there that we can't definitively answer. But it all comes back to you want to do the least amount of work that you can to provide as much stimulus as possible so that you can get your ass out of there and recover.
Yeah.
So it does have my interest. The RIR concept has my interest.
Yeah.
But because of my old head programming and mentality, it is going to be incredibly difficult to pull back.
So
at least on a consistent basis.
Yeah, I messed around with RIR volume stuff at the end of last year when I was my last big push up. And because it was such a novel stimulus, I mean, I've never been just under 250 in my life. Obviously, eating was on point, right? So food, like this guy's going to have to figure out the nutrition side because he's done the weight loss. I agree. Getting maybe a little bit leaner might be ideal. But again, man, it's incredible what he's done. Like absolutely incredible. But yeah, when I did reps in reserve, higher volume, my body responded because it was such a novel stimulus. Now it was a lot more, like we've talked about, sarcoplasmic fluid-based hypertrophy than myofibular tissue-based hypertrophy, but it definitely was a different look. Like and then, yeah, RPs, their whole volume threshold. So my understanding from their minimum effective volume for body parts is typically like 8 to 10 sets a week. So that's what you need to maintain. Their adaptive volume is usually 12 to 20 sets. Maximal recovery volume really is person dependent, depends on your recovery, blah, blah, blah. But again, I think they brought in concepts that the strength world used that we were not using. And I think that's why it's been so successful. Also, you're forced to really, be logbook driven, very, very controlled, right? They're focused on the control reps, which most people don't do, right? So I think they did a lot of great stuff. And obviously they're one of the bigger names right now in bodybuilding programming, and for good reason. So, and also, all the quote unquote old heads who are beat up from clanging and banging, you go to that and you're like, oh my God, like my bad elbow of 30 years is no longer a bad elbow. Like, well,
and those are my thoughts. I'm like, I'm not progressing. I'm progressing this much at a time. We're talking, grams. Okay. And that's okay. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking I've tried everything. Like when in doubt, train harder. When in doubt, train more frequently.
More. Yeah.
Exactly. More versus okay. And yet at the same time, I will go against that concept when I talk about arm training, right? Because I accidentally noticed that when I cut my direct arm training back because I saw them as a strength and didn't really need to put that effort into the arms where I needed to put it and still do into chest, back, and shoulders, my arms started growing. So that right there tells me, if I were to go this route, I may pick up on gains that might be, instead of grams, maybe it'd be ounces. And that matters over time, big picture stuff. It matters. The question is whether I can do it. That's not the question. The question is whether I can do it consistently, because my brain has been programmed a specific way for 41 years. That's a very, very difficult situation to unprogram how you're wired and be able to stay consistent with that. Let me ask you this, as far as rep ranges, he trains in a higher rep range. Do you see a benefit? Now, he may do that because of the injuries.
Yeah.
He may do that because it's part of the Renaissance
or
ideology.
That's the loads that he has access to. I knew that.
I need this on a remote. I need a remote button. I just need a remote.
So it could be just because he's a garage-based trainer and that's what he has access to, which is fine.
And his exercise selection is going to be limited anyway. I was going to go the route and say I would not want to program his exercises to be very specific for him, because as much as I know and as much experience I have with programming and training people, he knows those injuries. So he knows what feels good and what doesn't, what might hurt and what doesn't. Those exercises that I don't even have to deal with, my shoulders feel great or my knees feel great. So I would advise on, okay, here's a list of what I think are better exercises for your situation. So pick from this list and go with the exercises that don't hurt, that don't get in the way or provide a hurdle or an obstacle for you to be able to train with the intensity or the volume that you need to be able to continue to progress. And I'll say one more thing. I think that his leg training, and it could be limited because of the injuries, but leg training with just leg extension and leg curls is leaving a lot on the table. But he may have to. That I don't know.
Correct. Yeah. That's what I caught up on too. And then he doesn't train calves, so start training your calves. I know garage calf training is a pain in the butt. It is doable. So if we would have to have a very in-depth conversation, but I have personally done it and I've modified it enough to people, even with an injury history. If you're very smart with programming, you're very diligent with warm-ups and certain parameters, I still would say, hey, my favorite program of all time for putting size on people is the original DC two-way split. We just would be pushing his rep ranges up significantly. We might have parameters on a Widowmaker for his quad movement. Can he even do anything other than a leg extension? I would put somersault squats as a garage gym trainer on his radar. Getting like a belt squat attachment probably wouldn't be a bad idea, because that opens up a whole other world of stuff he could do, not just squats, but RDLs, rows, a whole bunch of stuff. So I would maybe put that on his radar. But I've personally ran DC, as beat up as I am. You're not doing, your third round of a rest pause ain't going to be that 1 or 2 reps like Dante originally wrote it. Your third round, I want at least 4 reps. So his total rep range for all 3 rounds of a rest pause might be 20 to 30 reps, so because Dante was 12 to 16 for myself, I pushed it from 12 to 20. For him, I might go, I want that final round of a rest pause being at least 3 to 4 reps. So his rep ranges would go up. But I still think that's the quickest way to put on size. And he's only hitting everything once a week right now with his training split. So you're going to hit, everything, alternating weeks of what body parts you hit twice. But I would say, hey, let's see if we could modify this enough based on your injury history. He has the final say with movements, and go from there. But that's what I would do.
Okay, so I've got a couple questions. Number one, I want to make a point first. Bringing up the rep ranges and saying that they're high, I don't want to give the implication that I'm against the higher reps, because I'm not. Okay. Hypertrophy with higher reps is great. I have said for years that I got a lot of leg growth out of Widowmakers. but that's to failure training. So I don't know if that will translate when it comes to higher reps, because then you're dealing with fatigue. I
That's
mean,
the downside of them.
it's
Yeah.
a tough. I'd rather see the higher reps to failure than I would not to failure with reps in reserve. But you know, the reason I ask that is because if you have been in a specific rep range for a long time and you transition to a different or a lower rep range, it's a stimulus that you haven't seen before. So it typically you will progress from it. It'll be advantageous or beneficial. So that's something to consider. But he does say, obviously, there are 10 rep sets in there as well. Another question is this: when you're in and you have a home gym, there is an exercise, because people think, oh, belt squat, I don't have a belt squat. You do, you could. A T-bell squat can be utilized with a belt. Are you familiar with what it's basically?
No.
Two platforms, and you have the T. It's almost like you've seen the squeezer. We'll put a picture up here on the screen, but you've seen the squeezer exercise, or that slides up and down. It looks like a little mini Smith machine.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
This one just has a T bar, like there's a
Yeah.
little bar at the top.
Oh,
And
gotcha. Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Now you
Yeah.
can do T-bell squats, and that's a great movement too. But if you
Yeah.
wanted to convert and lower, let's say you're having lower back issues, you want to lower that stress and not have, because when you're holding a T-bell or even a T-bar for that matter, that weight is coming through the shoulders, all through the erectors and everything else. You're going to minimize that if you use the T-bell and can maneuver or strap that to the belt squat belt and do the same movement. So it is an option. They even make belt squat pivot type things. I have not used one. I don't know if mechanically it feels the same way. It seemed like it might be a pain in the butt to get in and out of, but the point is the exercise can still be done. And it could be done, let's say he's already doing, like he is, extensions, and then he wants to superset that with a belt squat so that he doesn't have to load up, so many plates that he can't, he has a hard time getting in and out of that movement. There's another option. The third thing, I'll stop with this because I don't want to be put too many things to you at once. But he talks about doing the BFR with the biceps. I'm not against it, but at the same time, I'm not so much of a fan of BFR that I would want to use it what sounds to be consistently, and then I would wonder why he's using it consistently. I'm going to assume that because he sees it as a weak point, his biceps is a weak point, that he's seeing that and going, yeah, this is how I'm going to get biceps to be bigger. But when he's talking about how he programs it, the BFR, it sounds like it's more for warm-ups. Is that what you got out of it too? Okay.
Yeah, he's not doing the 30, 15, 15, 15 for hypertrophy. It sounds like, he's just warming it up. Maybe because he currently has tennis elbow. Again, I don't know if he currently has that or previously had that. A patient just bought a belt squat attachment for her home gym, and I know it was supposed to be arriving today or tomorrow, that she was going to try out and let me know. I've made it with just a landmine in my garage.
That's what I was wondering as well.
My woman did it. We used a dog leash for the belt and then a landmine attachment. We had to get creative, but she loved it. That became her squat movement in our little garage gym. So it's doable, right? So you just gonna have to get outside
in or out, away from the pivot point.
So she preferred to face in.
Okay.
Because then otherwise your hips are going to hit it, because she was doing almost low bar glute specific, even though we've talked about it's, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, because if you're facing out, that bar is going to hit your what every time. And I'm
thinking about the plates. Unpleasant. The plates would probably be in the way as well.
Yeah, correct. Okay. So facing in. So it's doable. And then, I mean, you'd have to be creative, but I would lean more towards that. If he's just too beat up, we're going to have to change things up. But the big thing is, figuring out what movements can you do for legs that are more than just that. But again, mad respect for his journey. Like, that's freaking awesome.
Yeah. And just to touch on the leanness component, again, he's dropped 100 pounds. He's probably still, I would assume, wanting to or slowly leaning out anyway. So if there's some recomping there, even if he could find some maintenance, like kind of what people would consider to be maintenance calories as far as scale weight. But
Yep.
if you're still progressing in the gym and you're getting stronger, but your scale weight is staying relatively stable, you're still growing.
Yep.
So those little micro gauges or those tools will tell you that, I mean, there's no way around it. If you're
Yeah.
progressing in strength within bodybuilding rep ranges, you're growing, whether the scale is moving or not. So if your brain is not programmed to understand that that is the definition of recomping. So you're getting leaner. You may not see the visual changes on a scale of, okay, I can see I'm getting leaner, but that has to happen over time if you're remaining relatively stable with that scale weight. So continue to do that if that's what you do. If you're not, then of course you can reduce your calories. I don't know what the diet looks like. We don't typically get into the diet in these types of assessments because it becomes incredibly complex, and it would go on, the show would go on, or the assessment would go on for 2 hours. So I don't have anything else to add to it. I think I think I have conveyed my perspective on it. You feel the same way, or do you have anything else that you want to add to it?
A couple movements to put on his radar because he's a garage gym trainer that will quickly show on screen. So like, shoulders were limited. A chest supported dumbbell lateral or chest supported dumbbell Y raise is brutal because you're locked in. So there's no cheating. Rack chins from Dante for back, especially lat, because does he not have a pull-up bar? People go, well, I can't do any pulling motions. And then people typically do bands only. You're going to be kind of limited. So a rack chin is awesome. You have free weight, so use accommodating resistance. So adding a light band to his dumbbell or barbell curls totally changes the movement. Landmine would be incredibly versatile. He could even do, even though I typically program him for athletes, like a landmine one-arm press, right? Because that'll get a lot of upper pec front delt combo. Like that could be doable. A landmine opens up rows, meadows rows, one-arm rows, like we've shown before. Somersault squats, I think, should be on his radar. Because that's an easy way to load with no spinal loading, and usually people could do that. It's another adjunct for extensions. So yeah, you'll need to get a little creative, but those are some movements I think would be really helpful for garage gym folks. And rep tempo. I'm bringing it up again, but specifically for how you could change rep tempo to change the movement. So I think I've talked about it before, but as a garage gym trainer, you need to rotate through different things. So when you're doing lateral raises, you have 2 different ways to do it. You could slowly start the movement, and then really kind of pause at the top, so it's hardest in the shortened position. Or you could really try to explosively start it at the bottom, so it's harder at the bottom, lighter at the top, so you wouldn't hold it. So same movement, but my intent of when do I pause or when do I try to explode challenges the muscle slightly differently, because he's going to have to get creative. So you could do the same movement. You could do a normal chest press, and you could do a chest press when you're pausing in the stretch position for a full 2 count, or even doing the dead stop, like the racked bench press or the racked rows, right? Pen lay rows versus a barbell row, if his low back could handle it. If not, you could still do a chest supported barbell row, because especially people in garage, their dumbbells are limiting. You could add a resistance band to a dumbbell row. It's brutal because it's already getting harder in the shortened position, but you could do that. You could do a chest supported barbell row, a pain in the butt to set up, but like there's other options, but just play around with rep tempo, play around with resistance bands or chains. Yes, that's going to be harder on recovery. So long as you wouldn't add a band to a dumbbell lateral, because both of them are already getting hard in the top position, right? So you want to make it match the strength curve, right? So like with the curl, there's still not going to be a lot of resistance with a dumbbell barbell curl just because of gravity. But as the moment arm shortens, that band kicks in at the top. If you've never do a banded dumbbell curl, it's brutal. Like it's murder. So get creative. I would say make sure you have a set of good resistance bands. I would have him train 3 days a week. That way he has plenty of time to recover. Everybody knows what is day number 4 for me. Hit cardio and outside the box core movements, especially with his back history, because he's got some herniated discs, it sounds like. Remember, your body does a really good job of healing itself, and most people have a herniated disc and don't even know about it. So be mindful of that. And then BFR could be used for legs days, right? If he's limited, you do BFR leg extensions and then you do a somersault squat. It's challenging as hell. So he might need to play around with BFR. But yeah, I'm with you. I wouldn't use it year round. You use it in blocks or pieces, or use it to make the weight that you do have harder.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so I'll piggyback off that and say, which you made a good point about the training outline or the training schedule. He does train 3 days a week currently. I think that's great as far as recovery. I still stand by the one muscle group a week frequency is still rock solid. There is the argument then from there as to whether there can be more frequency for weak body parts. He's going to have to figure that out. And it's pretty easy to assess. If you feel that you do want to focus, say, on biceps, and you add a second bicep workout to your week, you just have to keep track and assess the progress. Is the progress there or is it not? It's that simple. And if it's not there, don't do the extra work because it's not working.
Yeah, see, I like upper, lower, and lower would have his biceps and forearms. I like that, and then just alternating. So ABA, BAB, and then
and it's a short workout if you think about it. The leg workout, if he's only doing, or I don't want to say short, but it's probably short for time, but then short on energy expenditure too. If he's only doing extensions, leg curls, and then he says that he might do one set of calf raises, there's not a lot of work being done there. So he could do the arm workout or at least the biceps prior to legs. And probably not see any difference with energy as he, as he finishes up legs. Just a couple things to throw in. If you're in a gym, home gym environment, I don't see any excuse for not doing banded pullovers because no one's going to trip over them. You're not going to be in anybody's way. Like you can be in a gym. And you can typically find something that's fixed, like a pole support in your basement to fix the band to, versus in the gym, you're trying to find a piece of equipment or something, and then you have to line up the bench with it and then hope that no one trips over it and, gets pissed at you or does a video of you and puts you on, you go viral because you are in your own world and you're taking up all the space in the gym. The other thing is where you say somersault squats, I don't disagree with that when it comes to a leg extension and a kind of like a superset type of thing, I think is what you're implying. But don't leave sissy squats out too, if the knees will allow you to be able to do that, because a leg extension sissy squat is also brutal. I think on that point, I don't have anything else to add. I think we covered everything quite well there. Agree?
Yeah. Oh, and then you can train adductors. So get wrist or ankle cuffs, because he should have that anyways, because it gives novel stimulus and gets around the tennis elbow. But you could anchor a band and stand and do hip adduction, hip abduction. You could go in, you could go out. So like you could still, people go, I'm training a garage gym, I don't have a good girl, bad girl machine. You could still also rig that in your rack with resistance bands, right? So you could still train adductors. So yes, get some ankle cuffs. Shameless plug, there's a $10 set in my Amazon list. And I only bring that up because my first set literally lasted me 5 years. And I used it a lot with my bad wrist. So it was the best $10 I'd spent in a long time.
I think the only way resistance bands get broken or don't work is when you leave them in the gym.
I'm talking about the wrist strap itself. The wrist cuff for $10 lasted five or 6 years. And I'm to the point when I do train, I almost have to do them for all my bicep stuff. I'm just sick of my wrist getting so beat
up. I misunderstood.
So then,
I thought you were talking about the resistance band.
But
go ahead.
No,
I want to emphasize that if he is limited, and that's why he's only doing leg extensions and leg curls, it makes the adductor abductor work that much more important. If you're squatting or you're doing walking lunges or something, I may not go, oh yeah, you have to do adductor abductor work. But with the leg workout being just leg extension, leg curl, especially if you have a history of lower back problems, that adductor abductor work can be very beneficial. Plus, you're in your home gym. no one's going to see you using a resistance
Exactly.
band for abductor adductor work, which would be a
Yep.
reason that I would be like in a gym. I'd be like, I don't know if I want to do this. I'm not sure. Good point. Good point. All right. In the last show, we were doing the riskiest movements for each body part. We need to finish up with lower body, right?
Yep.
I've got my list. Where do you want to go first? You can I'm handing you the ball.
Let's start with quads. We just got to make sure we talk about low back and abdominals. But let's start with quads.
Sounds good.
So guess what? The good news is, as bodybuilders, our lower body injury risk is pretty low compared to upper body. Right? So normally it's just catastrophic shit, right? So quads, no big surprise. Athletes typically have it more. So explosive kicking, high speed sprinting are the most dangerous for quad muscle tears. It's usually the rec fem, which is the most commonly injured muscle group of the quad. Quick deceleration, jumping, abrupt changes in direction, obviously direct trauma. When it comes to lifting, though, usually the research says, typically it's a heavy leg extension injuring the rec fem, because it's the muscles lengthen under tension and isolation, and then it's too much. If you are going to get injured in a squat and injure the quad, it seems like it typically affects the vastus medialis, but the papers talked about how that's usually due to very poor technique and high eccentric loading. So you're just dive bombing and catching yourself at the bottom. So we should not be doing that as bodybuilders. We're not power lifters. We're not gymnasts, right? So you want to have control. So long as you have control, the injury risk for quads on squats is pretty darn low, right? It's the explosive stuff. It's the change of direction. I will say most quad injuries I've treated are soccer players. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. And then, if you're going to have a quad injury, Paul O'Neill comes to mind, but his was a patellar tendon injury, right? And that's just a freak thing. But for the most part, it's your athletes are going to be having that. What are your thoughts?
I put squats in there.
Yep.
Only because, but you make a good point. It's not typically the quad. So I have two. The other one is arguably a little bit more novel, but I want to discuss it. But before I do that, I want to ask you, the way that I see it is that if you were to tear your vastus lateralis, you'd have to tear pretty much every other part of your quad. I see it more as the lateralis to me is kind of like the reserve part of the it's like a spillover. So it's the last part of your quad that wants to grow. It's almost arguably the last part of your quad that is stimulated because it's, rec fem and medialis. And then it's like, okay, if you train hard enough and or heavy enough with, great form, eventually then it spills over to the lateralis, because that's what we always, I want more sweep, get more size. Because as the quads grow, then you'll get more lateralis development. But I can't think, can you think of a vastus lateralis injury?
No.
I don't think in my 41 years I've heard of one.
It would be more IT band TFL driven, because think about that fascial connection with the IT band and the quad. That's so damn dense, 2,000 pounds of force to change an IT band. So if you want to keep foam rolling it, by all means, go for it. That hurts like hell. It takes 2,000 pounds of force, according to the data, to actually make meaningful change. Nobody's generating or tolerating that. But you really foam roll a crossball massage gun where your pants pocket is, where the TFL muscle belly is. That's how I get people to loosen up their IT band. And it is a fraction of the pain and probably double the outcome, right? So just an FYI. So I will never have a patient foam roll or work on the IT band. If they choose to, fine, but you're a sadist.
Well, here's my exercise. But this is going to be one of the few times that I make an assumption, because I haven't done the exercise.
Ooh, breaking your own rule.
Right, exactly. And I rarely do this, but I'm kind of putting it out there because logically it makes sense, but then I can ask you your thoughts on it, because it's starting to trend. And I like the idea of it, but it could be a very potentially vulnerable exercise. The lying leg extension. Okay. Now I like the idea of it.
Yeah.
Stretch that big stretch. And I don't see the knee. I see the knee as being incredible, like a complete lack of vulnerability, really, because of that stretch position versus, I see the knee being in a more vulnerable position on the leg extension in the more contracted or extended when the leg is extended. Shearing force, that sort of thing. And again, I'm putting my thoughts out there. You correct me if you feel differently or if I'm just flat out wrong. But I think if the weight is controlled, the mechanics are good, the lying leg extension could be the next training exercise change that we go, why didn't we think of that sooner? Thoughts?
So biomechanically, I love it. I've programmed it for years of you either sit super upright and exercise the shorten, or you put that seat back and your hips are in the air, but it's not max load. It's like Bulgarian split squat level soreness in your rec fem the first few times you hit it. You've got to be, though, you're not doing Dorian Yates reps, right? He's famous for saying he had the leg extension loaded up and he was generating so much force, he was moving the entire flipping machine across the gym floor.
Oh, wow.
You do a lying leg extension with that much force, it's not if, it's when. So if you're going to increase the stretch that much, because remember, the rec fem crosses the hip joint. It is the only part of the quad that does it. That's why it behaves differently. It requires hip extension and knee flexion to fully shorten. When everything else is different, you're not going to be exploding up like the games we play in our head of, if I don't get this rep, my wife dies or some terrible shit. I mean, that's what I do. So don't listen to if somebody has the ability to listen to my thoughts training, they would put me in a mental asylum. So, like hopefully
your wife would be like, damn.
Yeah. Like, you should be like, really? You let me die? You didn't get that?
Like, what do you think? You think about this while you train? Really?
Yeah. So you wouldn't be doing that, but biomechanically, abso-freaking-lutely. I love how that company sold that pad to increase the stretch on a leg extension.
And it's so easy.
I'm like, just grab a freaking, I've used yoga blocks. I've used punching bag things that you'll see on the screen, right?
Well, it reminds me of the old school 1970s version of the flat bench with the leg extension, leg curl. It was a leg extension, leg curl combo. And what's funny, what stands out in my brain is it was that sparkly red material, upholstery, the material.
Oh, okay.
You remember what I'm talking about? It's like real sparkly. Straight out of the 70s.
But it is 70s for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. It was just so flat. And honestly, I swear that hit for the leg curl, hit my hamstrings harder than the current benches that have the bend in them.
I think I picked up the whole hips in the air lying thing. I think it was Phil Viz. I think that's the first person I saw before I dove into my meathead biomechanics. And then doing that thing where you think you're super smart and you figure something out. And then 2 days later, I was like, you dumbass, you're just ripping off Phil. Because I thought I was so smart. But, my God. Because remember, I can't do heavy leg extensions. I can only do BFR. You add BFR with a lying leg extension and you're adding a stretch. And I was using punching glove bags at the time. Yeah, my rec fem was pretty darn sore.
Yeah.
Yep.
That wasn't my exercise for hamstrings. What's your exercise for hamstrings? We might have the same one.
Yeah. So hamstrings is for bodybuilders. It's heavy hip hinging, right? So heavy deadlifts, heavy RDLs. I don't like a knee locked off stiff-legged deadlift. Yes, it technically hits your hamstring more and might take a little bit of glute out. I don't like it. No big surprise. High speed running, sprinting, especially the late phase when you're kicking that leg out, is the riskiest move for muscle tears with injuries. I will say, as a clinical gem, I don't know how many people are talking about this, so I'm probably giving too much away as usual. I have found that anecdotally, people with a history of chronic hamstring tears, they suck at recruiting their adductor at that same side, especially the adductor magnus. The adductor magnus is massive. There's a front division and a back division. The back division acts like a second set of hamstrings, right? So coming out of an ass to grass squat, that has the leverage to fire starting hip extension from the bottom before the glute does. So typically, if somebody I've popped this hamstring 3, 4, 5 times, I assess adductor activation, and they cannot activate it on that side.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Now, and then specifically in the research, when you have hip flexion and knee extension simultaneously, that'll typically injure a different part of the hamstring. And that's seen with like slide tackles. You're doing the splits. Break dancers actually strain these quite a bit. And then in terms of prevention, now I don't program them, I don't do them, but it's one time when one specific exercise has legitimate research about preventing future injuries. That is the Nordic curl. So if you've had a history of chronic hamstring strains, research says getting strong at Nordic curls reduce your re-injury rate by up to 50%. I think it was 51%. That is incredible. So all my field athletes, right? Nordic curls are big, big, big. Now, as you know, if you're a men's open bodybuilder weighing 300 pounds, I don't know how many guys are doing Nordic curls in bodybuilding, let alone at that size, right? But if you have a history of it, get your adductors going. Yes, that's more than just good girl, bad girls, right? We already talked about other things you could do as a garage gym trainer. But also, like, if you can, get really good at Nordic curls, because it's the one time where, again, maybe I'd have a bigger social media following if I did the whole POV, this one exercises, fix this. I hate that content. Got it, cheap, blah, blah, blah. But you can make a legitimate argument based on the research that Nordic curls, that is the POV to prevent future hamstring strains, so long as you get your adductors firing.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And they're becoming more common.
Because now we have machines, right? Which is awesome to have because like otherwise, how the hell do you set it up? Yeah.
Or you get in that position, you realize you're not strong enough to get your ass out of the position. There's that.
Brutal. And then just please stop 4-plate stiff leg deadlifting a month out from your show. Like there's no need to do that. I'm sorry. Like I know bring the one who brought you to the dance and all that. And it sounds great on paper.
It does. Especially it's very cliche.
Especially if you are choosing to go the enhanced route, the risk to reward that last month it's not going to do anything. Like it's not, that's why my hamstrings weren't dug out, because I cut off stiff-legged or RDLs a month out from the show.
I bet Nick is careful with those RDLs and stiff legs as it comes down to the show, because he's had a bad run. I know he's like, well, that's not worth it. I do want to give a quick shout out, and I don't usually do shout outs. You know that. But I got to give a shout out to, and I don't know who it is, but they're out there somewhere. So if you're listening and you're the person, and I almost said guy, but I have to say person. If you're the person who labeled adductor and abductor exercises as good girl, bad girl, it's a high five to you, because that is just so witty and so catchy and good for you. High five.
Yeah.
Well done. And that person is not getting that. Correct. But they're not getting they're not getting their due. Like it's being used now. And I know they're probably mad at home on the computer going, I made that up and I'm not getting any credit for that. And I don't blame you. You deserve the credit. Yeah. My exercise is stiff leg deadlifts. It's actually an exercise that I like, but I don't want to use it very often. When I do, number one, it's a finisher. It's always going to be a finisher. And it is very light and it's high rep. And if I have to be honest, I'm going for, as soon as I feel the stretch, I'm out. There's not going to be any forced range of motion there.
We need to talk about that. I think we've talked about it before. I am headstrong on this. I'm sorry. You'll never be able to convince me otherwise. Will a crazy deficit stiff-legged deadlift build massive erectors? Yes, I am not arguing that. But I've talked about this before. When you're doing a hip hinge, by definition, your assets, pun intended, need to be moving backwards. As soon as your hips quit moving backwards, you're done. Why? You fully lengthen glutes and hamstrings. Any other movement is now coming from your low back.
Right.
Then erectors are stabilized. But why am I so headstrong? Around that same time, those tiny little paper-thin stabilizers, multifidi, all that stuff that we can't consciously control is actually relaxing to allow your lumbar spine, the bones themselves, to continue to separate and flex forward because that's the only way you're going to continue going. So you're losing your internal intrinsic stability that we can't consciously control. That is why your erectors get blasted and get big, but the risk to reward is not there. For the listener who said we need a job security count, that's number one, right?
Yep.
So it is, but it's such a world of difference. So like when I'm doing my favorite exercise of all time, everybody say it with me, the foam roller RDL, right? As soon as your hips go moving back, you're done, right? And then you're also going to feel such a big contraction in that glute, especially the glute med, right? If you're feeling pain in your low back or your pain is going, it tells me one of two things. You're not pushing your hips back, you're folding forward, or you're going way too deep. So live to fight another day, right? Your erectors are still getting stimulated. It's not like they're not working. But yeah, that is a vulnerability for the low back, especially because most people are looking up at the bottom in the mirror. Once again, if this is your first episode, here's a gem. If it's your 30th episode, you've heard me say this before. When you extend your neck, you extend your low back. So I want your chin neutral. Your vision is a pendulum, right? Give yourself every possible. So biomechanically, it's better because you will be significantly stronger, like significantly. If you don't believe me, you're going to have a partner. You're going to lie face down. Your chin is going to be down, neutral. You're going to do a leg curl. Somebody's going to pull on your leg and you're going to resist them. Then you're going to look up. They're going to pull on your leg again. You're going to have no give. Your hamstring's going to give, right? So not only are you putting your back in a vulnerable position, you're specifically reducing force output to the hamstrings. Last time I checked, RDLs and stiff leg deadlifts are a hamstring movement. We probably don't want that, right? So vision's neutral. Your hips are going back. As soon as your hips are quit going back, you're done. That's your end range. Come back up. Make sure you're pushing on the foot tripod, the big toe of your knuckle, right? There's a perfect RDL.
If there is one main or the biggest takeaway that I have gotten from you since we have been doing the show, 30 episodes now, right?
Yeah.
30 or 31?
Yeah.
It's not looking up. Doing bent rows, anything I'm pretty much bent over with. But the RDL or the stiff leg is, and I say RDL, stiff leg, I don't want to get into the nuance of that, but the point is every now and then I'll use the stiff leg. It's the same type of thing where looking up, it's just not a great idea. And I've done it for years.
It's hard to retrain yourself.
It is. It very much. And at first I didn't notice it. I didn't notice much of a change. And I kind of even thought, I'm like, this doesn't matter. Because you don't notice it right away because you're not, at least I wasn't as comfortable with not looking up. So I was more focused on not looking up than I was what everything felt like in the hamstrings, glutes, lower back. And so after doing it a few times, I'm like, oh, this is different. Now, I didn't do that with hamstring curls. So I was okay there. I never looked up for hamstring curls, which is odd because but whatever. I'm odd. With that note though, let's change it. Let's go with calves and then we'll come back up to like lower back or glutes. Is that cool? Calves. What stands out for calves?
So obviously athletes, sprinting, rapid acceleration, explosive jumping, abrupt changes in direction, tennis in particular, and now pickleball, job security. There's number 2. I love pickleball because people haven't worked out in 30 years and I'm going to go do an explosive side to side movement. And I've sat on a couch for 30 years. Let's go.
Every old white person loves pickleball.
Yep.
It's the whitest. I think it's the whitest sport. It's not even ice hockey. Ice hockey, pickleball. What the hell is this?
Yeah. It's like that and bocce ball or lawn bowling. They've got to be neck and neck.
I'm thinking like, how do you say it? High lay or something? I don't know. Anyway, that's like probably less than that.
The most common cause is going to be triple extension, right? So that is extending at the ankle, the knee, and the hip all at once. So that's sprinting, jumping, but think Olympic lifts, right? That's super common in Olympic lifting and in CrossFit. There's that. Now, in strongman, truck pulls, like semi-truck pulls where they're literally pulling a truck, are notorious for tearing strongmen's calves. We're going to bring back from the Rehab Prehab. It is Dr. Marv approved. I have a promo code for it, shameless plug, the Toe Pro, where I talked about the 10 small muscles that reside within your feet. Those similar to a chronic hamstring strain. People have chronic ankle sprains or chronic calf strains. Those muscles are not firing. So you're going to want to train those muscles. They're massive. Even if you're not an athlete, they're tied to ankle sprain risk. They're tied to lateral agility, sprinting speed, senior citizen fall risk down the road, but they dampen vibration, which is really, especially for somebody who uses a lot of stepper for cardio. If those foot muscles aren't firing, there's unfeathered vibration from every step going up your lower body chain. So it's really, really important. So absolutely everybody should start training their foot muscles. The Toe Pro from Dr. Thomas Michaud is how I do it. And then if you want to end up getting, yes, you could use a pillow or rolled up yoga mat, a squishy pad, but if you want to actually get the actual device where all those benefits I just rattled off are researched and are highly proven, it's the Toe Pro. I have a promo code. And then I tore my calf messing around with pump style sets on a leg press. I never do that. I am Mr. You stretch on all my programs. You stretch out each calf / Achilles for 20 to 30 seconds a time for 4 rounds. You pause in the bottom of every rep. There's no bouncing reps. But I was like, you know what? I want to try pump sets on this. It was super light. I had these headphones on and I had noise cancellation going. My metronome was still going from my previous set and music was loud. And I felt and heard it. And the person next to me said, "What was that?" And I said, "That was my calf." And I sat there for 5 minutes, rethinking life. My foot kind of started dangling a little bit. And I was like, okay, I felt it high up in my calf muscle. I don't think it was the Achilles, but that was fucking loud. Like, yeah. I heard it. People literally like, "What was that?" I just tore my calf. So, and I was, that's my bad ankle. Those foot muscles do not fire very well. So that tells me it had been holding on for a while. So yeah. Dumbass. I still have not totally mentally recovered from that. I know that's embarrassing, but I still have yet to do a full DC calves on that same leg press, even though it's fully healed. Just, I've got that mental block.
Oh yeah.
But if no bouncing calf raises, we've talked about it. The only rep tempos I do are DC calves or 2-4-4, right? But I did bouncing for some reason. And it wasn't even like the sloppy bouncing people do.
Right.
But it just was up, down, up, down, up, down, pop. So the one time
go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I was going to say the last thing, and then I know I'm being long. The only time I recommend statically stretching a body part before training is calf / Achilles, but you're only doing it for 20 to 30 seconds. You're staying below that 45 to 60 second threshold because I don't want to relax muscle spindles and Golgi tendon organs, but I want to get that tendon warmed up and get used to being under load and stretched out.
Yeah. And that's what brings me to the seated calf raise. Yeah. I just think that it's one of the more vulnerable exercises you can do in the gym. And this is why, especially if you come in and you do calves prior to legs, which I think is a good idea. But if you have any type of issue or you've had an issue in the past, I wouldn't blame you for doing calves after legs. Yeah, they're more fatigued. Yeah, you might not have as much contractile force, but you're arguably your Achilles is going to be it's going to be warm. It's going to be far more pliable, far more flexible post leg training than it will be early. And I think it's important to note that when you're doing a seated calf raise, and all seated calf raises are different. Sometimes the toe block is level. Sometimes it's kind of decline. You really need to be careful with that. And if any movement you're going to do is deliberate, I just can't think of an exercise in the gym that needs to be more deliberate than this exercise. And you want to make sure, I think, and tell me if you feel the same way, you don't want those knees out over the ball of your foot, like exaggerated. You don't want the pad that goes on your quads like halfway up your quads. You want that pad at the bottom of the quad because, and I'm piggybacking off of what you said earlier, that how did you verbalize
triple
it? How did you triple extension.
Triple extension. Mm-hmm.
You want your lower leg to be as perpendicular to the floor as possible versus it being further out ahead of or over the toes. Because I think that the further out that knee gets, the more vulnerable to position. Do you agree? Or am I kind of like, off base on this one?
Well, I think people go wrong is that they're going so explosively that pad is shifting on their quads, right? So
Well, it
that's
shouldn't if you got weight on it, but I see what you're saying.
But I've seen people do that where I'm like, geez, do I say something to this person? Like I normally am just let everybody be. But yeah, you would get a bigger, and again, you're prioritizing the soleus. So you putting a great knee flexion angle is not going to change anything. There is this one paper though talked about how the initial phase of a squat can tear quads, right? Which was surprising to me because I haven't heard of anybody. I mean, tearing a calf. I haven't heard.
Okay,
of
I was thinking.
tearing
I was
a calf
like that. I thought that's where you were going to go.
Yeah. But it was interesting. Or the improper. Or older elderly folks are deconditioned. It's called stoop lifting. So you're lifting not with your hips, but you're doing the whole lock your knees out, round your low back, terrible lifting form. That though, in an older demographic or population, that is directly tied to calf tear risk, which, God, that would be I reached down to pick up a box and I tore my calf. Good God.
Yeah. But I can see it. I could see it in a squat. It could certainly, matter of fact, I could see it in a lighter squat than a heavier squat, because at least when the weight gets heavier, you're not going to be able to lean forward. You're going to be more in that forced path, if you will. Okay, so let's transition just so we can stay on track to the because I could talk and talk and talk. We all know that my verbosity is off the chain half the time. So let's go to what do you have next?
Go ahead. So we could do no, we're not done with we could do adductors real quick.
Okay.
Usually athletes, so soccer and ice hockey are super high. Like adductor strains in one study said up to 66 of all injuries in soccer were that, right? So that's pretty darn high. Key risk factors are previous strains, not being able to recruit it, like I talked about, reduce hip range of motion, especially internal rotation. For lifting, I think it's more common in powerlifting with sumo, powerlifting style squats, sumo style deadlifts. Of course, if you're going way too wide on a good girl, bad girl, be mindful. So let me talk about that. I always say when you're warming up on that adductor machine, so legs together, you're going to warm up the stretch first before you warm up load. So each warm up set, a little bit wider. And when you're really stretched out, you're using your hands to push your legs together to start the movement. And then you're going to grab the handles and get going. That super wide position is the most vulnerable, especially because the guys who are promoting it, they're all crazy big and their stretching is remarkable. And they have a gym pin loaded on it too. Like that starting rep is the most vulnerable. So use your hands to push it together. But then, I will treat groin issues in power lifters, especially pretty commonly.
I'm not going to, I don't think that, I don't have an adductor exercise outside of obviously the vulnerability of the stretch on an adductor exercise. I don't have anything else to add to that other than saying, I think it's important and it is typically overlooked by people in their stretching protocol to make sure that they are stretching their adductors, because I know I have noticed myself when I was going through chronic lower back issues that when I would stretch out my adductors, my lower back would loosen up like that.
There's a direct
and I always found
connection.
that odd. Okay. I couldn't explain it, but I noticed it.
I mean, if somebody has a hot low back and bending forward, it all hurts it. You just squeeze a ball between your legs to fire your adductors to stabilize your low back. And all of a sudden you're like, I have no back pain. Like, that's how important it is.
That's what it felt like.
Yep.
So proactive in that sense.
Correct.
You don't have one for abductors, do you? Oh, glutes. Okay, cool.
So glutes, this paper talked about it's typically acceptive hip adduction, so across the body, and internal rotation, which is going to be cutting or pivoting movements on a field. They did talk about in the gym, which I was like, I have never really heard of anybody doing this, of, just high peak forces with the glute muscles, especially under external load. But again, it's that not controlled right? You're not slow and controlled. They specifically mention single leg RDLs, split squats, loaded single leg hip thrust. I haven't really heard of anybody sharing something from that.
That would have to be, I think that one's
I was like,
probably the least likely. Yeah.
Correct.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now,
tearing a glute would be damn impressive.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's where I was going. I did tear my glute medius in 2020, but it didn't have to do with training. And we don't
Did it
cover
have to do
this
with scar
topic
tissue and all that
on the show. But what it was local inflammation in the ventrogluteal area that got incredibly tight. And then I forced the stretching to open it up. And I immediately went, oh, that didn't feel good. I'll leave that alone. And I was not, quote, injured at that point. I went to sit down on a bench to do dumbbell curls. I might have had 35-pound dumbbells in my hand. As soon as I sat down, pop, and then spasm. Spasm in the glute. I wanted to die. It was horrendous. I ended up later in the day when it happened again. I was to the point where if I was going to cry, it would have been at that moment. And I told my wife, I'm like, I think I need to go to the ER. When we got to the ER, they essentially did the equivalent of laughing at me because I had gone to the ER for a muscle spasm. But I didn't know any better. And it just hurt so bad that I told them, I'm like, I don't take pain medication. I'm not here to get, oxys or anything like that. And they said, we're going to write you a script because this is going to happen, or it can happen again later tonight or tomorrow, and you're going to wish that you had it. So I ended up, thankfully, I don't have any I don't take those types of medications and go, ooh, that's awesome. It almost feels like it does nothing to me, which is probably good because I understand they can be very addictive. So from a glute standpoint, I don't see a huge vulnerability. I agree with you with the exercises you're mentioning. Yeah, it can happen in a Bulgarian split squat. It can happen in those types of movements, but it's still
there's
far
something
less
else
likely
going.
than it is
There's something going else behind the scenes,
right?
And just make sure you are breaking up that scar tissue. That'll anecdotally refer to the knee, especially if you're seated, where it's like exploding pain behind your kneecap could be a non-traditional referral pattern from scar tissue and muscle contracture in the hip from always putting certain medications there and never working that out. So
all right. I do real quickly want to cover abs and then we can get out.
Yeah.
The only exercise that I can think of, and it's an old school exercise, so not a lot of people do them anymore, but a Roman chair sit-up. And I used to do them religiously when I was in my teenage years when I trained at home, and I got pretty strong. But to this day, I wonder if I have more developed obliques because of that than I actually needed. Because I also did very, very heavy side bends because those weighted side bends, because those were so popular back then too, that I finally had to quit doing them because I'm like, I'm getting way too thick in the midsection here. This doesn't look right. But that's the only way. I mean, sit-ups, but the Roman chair sit-up is what comes to mind because if you're new to that movement and you try that movement, you might screw yourself up. And not only from an ab standpoint, but a lower back standpoint too. It's just a really bad movement.
I mean, ab rollouts, every once in a while, somebody will pop a lower ab. But again, that's going to be more athletes. Fun fact for you specifically, abdominal strains account for approximately 5% of all injuries in pro baseball. And that's actually been increasing over the last 2 decades. And it's usually internal, external oblique or intercostal muscles. And the
I can see that though.
And the re-injury rate is about 12%, which is pretty darn high.
Okay.
And then it seems that, no big surprise, in hockey, an abdominal strain takes you out significantly longer than an adductor strain.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Now, did they say specific to the activity in baseball? Because I'm thinking hitting.
So it's going to be, explosive trunk rotation, flexion, extension, right? Yep. So hitting, right? Because you are going, especially if you're trying to do a moonshot and you're swinging out of your shoes.
Which is baseball these days.
But then pitching, right, will also be it. Abdominal strains are less common than adductor strains with athletes, but you're going to be out longer because, how do you play a sport without rotating your trunk?
Yeah. Exactly.
Unless you're doing lawn bowling. or your esports. There we go. Esports as an athlete.
I tell you, I'm the guy, I'm the dinosaur that would probably pull something playing lawn darts.
Yeah.
Are those even a thing anymore? The more I think about it, those might, because think about how dangerous those things are. But that was a common yard. That was our.
That's so wild to me.
What is that sport now where the bags? Cornhole. That was like our cornhole.
Hey,
it's like
we play cornhole at my household.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, wow, cornhole. That's kind of a wussy sport. We threw missiles. We threw 7-pound weighted darts. Exactly. Yeah. Get the kids away from the lawn dart thing.
And then low back flexing and twisting or forced hyperextension. So that could be almost anything, right? I will say deep leg presses are pretty common culprits.
Ooh.
And in powerlifting, if you do those crazy excessive arches, it's not if, it's when.
Yeah. The leg press is something that I have literally I've taken very little or very few exercises and shelved them. And even if I shelf them, sometimes I come back to them. I'm not coming back to the leg press. I'm done with it. I've herniated that disc throughout the amount of times that I did back in the day. I think it was 9 or 10. And the leg press, if it accounted for maybe 2 or 3, but then there's all the other times where it would irritate it, but it wouldn't necessarily be a full blown. It'd be enough to make me walk very gingerly for, a couple days. I'm just not going, it's a bummer because it was such a good exercise for my legs for so many years, but I will not do it. And I would go so far as to say this: above the leg press, the vulnerability is the vertical leg press. Not the angle leg press, but the vertical.
Can we throw that thing in the trash?
The only thing it's good for, here's the only reason I won't throw it away. I think it's great for calves. Exactly.
Oh, or calves. I was going to say coat hanger.
I thought you said calf.
Hanger.
Okay.
No,
for calves, it's awesome. It's kind of like a donkey machine. Yeah. But it's a little more of a pain in the ass because you have to load up plates versus using a weight pin, and you have to actually get down, bend down, get underneath and into position. But it is a great exercise for calves. Outside of that, I find that exercise, that machine, absolutely useless, except for setting your bag or your water bottle on top because it's right there and it's so convenient.
Yep.
And it's not used very often. Correct. So there's that. Good. I think we covered everything, did we not?
Yeah.
All right. Let's get into the Rehab, Rodeo Roundup. I'm never going to get old.
Nope. Okay, so this is a nice heavy band solo stretch on your traps, which could be hard to do, right? So I find this super helpful for pre-training, pre-posing, especially if you're somebody, which is super common, where you have that one high shoulder, right? It's usually a combination of scalenes, trap, levator tightness on that side, as well as subscap tightness down below. So on screen, this is a badass strongman, power lifter, Highland Games lifting enthusiast, where she was having chronic trap tightness that would always just flare up after every bench and after every deadlift session. So you're anchoring the heavy band, you're pulling that arm, the other arm behind you, and then your head position dictates the stretch. But it's super nice for getting a big stretch. The band tension really seems to relax that trap and levator a ton. So if you're somebody who always has that one high shoulder, whether it's with posing, whether it's with training, just walking around, this could be super helpful. I would recommend once you get in a good stretch position, you're going to do your belly breathing. So I don't want any chest breathing or paradoxical breathing we talked about in a previous rehab roundup segment, but you're going to do your belly breathing. You could play around with your head position. It's super nice. I would hold it for bare minimum 45 seconds, more like 60. Now, all the nerves into your arm go through this part of the neck. You might also have a little bit of a weird, it's not a blowtorch feeling, but it is a very unique feeling of the nerve getting stretched right around here at the top of the bicep, depending on how tight you are. So like, obviously, don't let it go past discomfort, right? So in the beginning, your head might start here, but by the end, you might be able to get a lot further. But you're going to, it's a weird pressure, empty, blowtorchy type feeling right around there. That's normal. She even talked about feeling it right away because she was so tight. But this is a nice adjunct when in between coming to me in the office where I'm needling or doing an electrified glove for manual work, it could be a great one to calm down the trap. I believe I learned this from Daniel Coffeen, the posing guy. I'm pretty sure I saw this from him first. I could be wrong. If not, he got a free plug. I always try to give people credit who I learned it from, but that could be really helpful. And then I would pair it. I've shown on here several times. You do that, and then you put the stick in your armpit to release the subscap. It's incredible how quickly you can pull that high shoulder down to help with posing and to help with training in the gym.
Now, I don't have a high shoulder, but I am within the last few weeks, especially since the show, both sides are getting really tight from sleeping, to the point where I am purposely sleeping on both sides, trying to sleep on both sides as equally as possible. So I'm going to use both of those methods, and I'm going to see how quickly that can help me to. If it were one side, I'd probably be a little bit more motivated than I have been, but because it's both, I'm like, it's even. And once I get into my day, everything is fine. But man, during the night and when I get up, I get up to go to the bathroom, I'm like, oh my goodness, I need to roll over on my other side. So it's for some reason, whether it's the weight gain after the show, I don't know what it is. I haven't gained a ton of weight, but there's about 15, 17 pounds in there in a couple months. So, it's coming up, and maybe that's playing into it a little bit too. All right. From there, can I take it into the Skip's cheat meal review?
Today was short and sweet, but big bang for your buck. Try it out, right? I think you'll be really happy, especially if you're somebody with one high side. So you got a tight neck, do both sides. It's pretty nice. People with chronic headaches, this seems to help. So yeah, it's just, there's a lot of applications, not hard to set up, and you can do it on your own. Because I'm always trying to find things that people could do on their own in between coming to me, right? So they have tools in their tool belt. You're out on the road and all of a sudden, oh my God, I slept wrong. My neck's all cricked up. That way you could all I need is a band and we could rock and roll. Of course, you could do the stretch without a band, but that heavy band depressing it makes it 10 times better.
Okay, Skip's cheat meal review. I have the number one burger. I say burgers because I have the two lists. But I'm going to run down the other burgers real quick. That is the franchise burgers. That's the one everybody's interested in because everybody can get. Number 5, In-N-Out. Number 4, Five Guys. Number 3, Shake Shack. Number 2, Smash Burger, which originated in Colorado. So I was spoiled with that one. I'll leave the number 1 spot for just a second. My picks, top 5. Moonlit Burgers in Pittsburgh. So if you're in Pittsburgh for a bodybuilding show, because there's plenty of them, drop by Moonlit. Cops Burgers and Custard in Milwaukee, if you're ever in Milwaukee. It's Wild Roots, which is basically Milwaukee gets 2 of the 5 burgers because we always visit the kids. So I've had to do my due diligence. The duck fat burger. You will not be disappointed. Order it. You'll be like, oh my goodness, type of thing. Lick your plate. Duck fat, duck confit, always a winner on a burger. And the number 2 spot is Cherry Cricket in Denver. You will smell the charcoal from 4 blocks away.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, it's just awesome. And it's kind of an institution in Denver. Like if you haven't had a Cherry Cricket burger and you live in Denver or spent any time in Denver at all, there's something wrong with you, because it's also a social kind of, place, hang out to, and it's massive. They had a fire about 5-6 years ago, and thankfully they rebuilt. There's a couple of them now. There's not just one. Anyway, the top spots are these. The franchise burger. And this one's going to throw people a little because some people won't know what it is, but it is a franchise. So if you have not heard of the Yard House, I'm sorry. There's 92 of them. Okay. Have you heard of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's one of my favorite burgers, and that's where I go to here. Yes.
And they have recently added one that I can't think of the name of it, but it's not my number 1. The number 1 there, and it's thankfully they've kept it on the menu for years, because we used to take the kids there for their birthdays, after sports, things like that in Colorado. That's where we probably spent more time there than we have. We've probably only been there 4 or 5 times in Florida. It's the, how you say it, Curabota pork burger. It has a blueberry ketchup. And now I'm not a fan of the arugula. If lettuce, okay, cool, because it's watery. Arugula is just like, I don't know, like you fell face down on your lawn and you get up and you're trying to get the grass out of your teeth. It just doesn't, arugula does not work for me. So I do have them take the arugula off. It might for you, that's fine. But outside of that, if you have this burger and you don't like it, I'd almost go so far as to say I will buy that burger. I will reimburse you for that burger. It's that good. If you are a burger aficionado. But what I'll have is people will be like, oh, that was a good burger. And then we're like, oh, it sucked.
What did you
better
call
send
it
me
again?
the money. What's
what
that?
did you call it again?
The Curabota pork burger. If you just say the pork burger with blueberry jam, they'll know what it is. But it's pork. So you can't get, like, if you say medium, they'll argue with you.
Yep.
It has to be cooked as kind of, and I'm not a well done kind of guy, but when it comes to pork, you don't want to play around with that. And it's still juicy. It's not dry. It is an excellent burger. My number one pick, though, I get excited even talking about it. I've only had it once, and I rarely review a burger that I have not had a couple times for consistency and all that type of thing. But it was that good. It was so good that I can't wait to get back to Vegas. It's at the Rodeo restaurant, and there's a story on my Facebook that I messed with the guy and I typed out because I kept calling it Bardot, just being a dick. And he was subtly correcting me because it's a very upscale, very expensive French restaurant in the Aria Hotel. And we stayed at the Aria. My wife likes to stay on the Strip. We can't go out to the bodybuilding, stay with the bodybuilders. We have to be on the Strip if we go there. They were cool enough, and most top chefs, really good chef, they don't like it when you play around and you change what is part of a dish. But I asked, I'm like, hey, is there any way that you could add duck confit and foie gras to this burger? And he smiled. He said, well, of course. I'm like, oh man, awesome. This is gonna be. So I got it. I'm like, oh man, this, and I knew it was gonna be expensive. I wasn't surprised. But the burger came out to be over $170. And it's because, I mean, I've never in my life, I've had foie gras on a burger before, but you get a subtle taste. This, they had what felt like or tasted like the equivalent of like 4 ounces of foie gras. It was just, I don't know that that's what it was, but there was so much, it was just so good. And duck fat just, it's so fatty. You know how fat is satiating, but it's just dripping off this burger. And I couldn't get enough of it. It was insane. It's not even close. God love Cherry Cricket. Ate a lot of great burgers there. They won the burger battle, the Denver burger battle, several times. But the first and second place here on that burger, it's not even close. So if you're in Vegas and you're like, I'm going to get that burger, don't go to like Gordon Ramsay and be like, oh, this is the best burger. Because it's not a bad burger. But I had Gordon Ramsay and I was disappointed. I had 3 different burgers there. I wanted to taste test them. And they all were above average, but they were not over the top. This burger is over the top. I don't know if anything will beat that for a while. Those are my top 5 burgers, franchise, and my picks. If you have any of them, make sure you comment. I want to know if you agree. We got to get to getting. This is Skip and Dr. Marv splitting. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to like, subscribe, share, and ring the bell. If you didn't like the show, pretend you did. Like, subscribe, share, and ring the bell anyway. Should sound a little something like this. Be sure to use the TrueNutrition.com link in the closing credits to save 10% on not just Team Skip protein, but every supplement they sell. Not only do I use my Team Skip protein with my clients, but other top prep guys have their clients use my protein because it's that good. Dr. Marv, how can someone reach out to you if they have questions, if they want to work with you?
Easiest way is Instagram at dr.marvin.saysdc. I am the sole owner of Coastal Performance Chiropractic in the Houston Bay Area. I also have theeducatedmehead.com. And then just FYI, I am getting stem cells on September 26th. I'm going to start documenting all of that on my YouTube. So I'm incredibly excited for that. I'm going to where Dusty Hanshaw went. So I just started documenting that of everything I'm doing before, during, and after. So just check that out. But yeah, whatever I can do to help, let me know and we'll rock and roll.
Awesome. If you have too much skin, you need to say you're 15%, but you're well over 20% body fat. I'm your guy. Go to teamskip.com and you'll find all my contact information, including Team Skip merch. You can also follow me on Instagram at Intense Muscle. Keep in mind that this is a team of 3, not 2. Chris is the enigma behind the scenes, and he's responsible for visuals, graphics, and he also plays a huge role in the creative process. This project would not work without him. So from all 3 of us, it's been a business doing pleasure with you. Join us again next week for another episode of Between Two Dumbbells.